Okay, good morning. It's good to see you all here today, and we hope you've enjoyed the week and had a chance to get out and enjoy the fresh air. And you know, it's God's desire for us that we be healthy and enjoy life. And I hope that this week has enabled you to do that, move along. We do live in the enemy's territory, though, don't we? And pain and suffering is part of life on this earth, and it's not meant to be that way. This morning we're going to be talking about how to manage your weight effectively and safely. There's all kinds of programs and gimmicks out there, and books. There's all kinds of programs. I'm sure you've heard many of them. You go to the bookstore, to Borders or what's the other bookstore? Barnes and Noble, and you see a whole row of books, and next year there'll be another whole row of books, and if they work, then why do we need another whole set, you know? One thing we do know for sure, and that is Americans are getting fatter and fatter, and it's really increasing quite dramatically. You see here obesity rates have doubled in the past 25 years. 300,000 people die annually from complications of obesity. And the bad news is that 2 out of every 3 Americans are overweight. 1 out of every 3 are obese. Obese means, a person who's obese means they're 20% or more overweight. And of course we have an increasing degree of overweight. Now, why are we concerned about being overweight? We have a list here of a number of the things that are usually associated. The top 4 there are commonly found in overweight people. They kind of go together, and they may not have all 4 of these, but very commonly they're expressed in overweight people. The risk of diabetes goes up tremendously. The risk of high blood pressure, and of course subsequently stroke, elevated blood lipids, cholesterol, triglycerides, and along with that is heart disease, and then cancer in many different places in the body. The risk of cancer is increased substantially by being overweight. So those 4 health conditions are guaranteed to happen excuse me, in overweight condition. And then of course we have joint problems, we have a greater risk of accidents, surgical complications, poor self-image, and risk of death. Now the image is particularly pronounced even in children. You know, a lot of children who are overweight suffer from self-image because of this. I remember when I was at school and we were picking sides to play games, you know, even if it was Red Rover or whatever it was, some games, running relays or football teams or whatever, the guys who were athletic and quick were always first picked, weren't they? And the little tubby guy, he's always the last one picked. Every time. And I used to feel sorry for the guy because, I mean, what was it telling him? It was like, I'm rejecting you. We don't want you on the team. And after a while, they feel like they're not worthy of anything, and this has a dramatic effect and can even cause depression. This just shows you from the Framingham study some of the data which shows how blood pressure and blood lipids are increased with overweight. You have on the right-hand side increases for every 10% above your ideal weight. Blood pressure, this is systolic, the upper value. For men, 6.6 points increase, women 4.5, and LDL in milligrams per deciliter, 6 to 11 points above for every 10%. So you see a person who's 30%, 40% overweight, they're going to have dramatically increased blood pressure and blood lipids. So clearly maintaining ideal weight will keep those numbers down. We live in a world where we're bombarded with all kinds of images and messages about weight and how to look. And TV programs, infomercials, fashion magazines, etc., all portray the ideal, the beautiful, as being slim, the slim body. We talked about this the other day. The unrealistic picture that we see of women that everybody is supposed to look like. Hollywood designed it that way. It's not a realistic shape or size. And yet we find on the other extreme, people are getting over and overweight. So we have this image over here, and yet we have reality, and the two are getting further apart. And so people spend millions of dollars a year on books and magazines and diet manuals and liquid powders and exercise equipment and all kinds of diet aids to try to get themselves down. 60 million Americans go on a diet every year, and at any given time, 40% of women and 25% of men are trying to lose weight. So it's good business. If you are in the business to make money, this is a good place to be. Someone has often said to me, why don't you just write a diet book and retire? Well, if I wrote a diet book, it probably would be fairly tame because the principles are fairly simple and you don't have to do anything really dramatic. It's finding the time and effort. Well, Fred went to the doctor once and he wanted a diet pill to block fat because he was having a real struggle. So the doctor says, well, I can give you a pill. Just take one of these before each meal and you'll be right. Now, with so many people on a diet, wouldn't you expect there'd be success? Well, unfortunately, as you see here, within 5 years of going on a weight loss program, most people, over 95%, have regained everything they've lost. So they're on a yo-yo program. You know, the yo-yo way of losing diet, you lose it and put it back on again. You lose it and put it back on. And usually when you lose weight, there's muscle loss and you put it back on as adipose tissue. And so that means your BMR is going down and your body weight is going up and you're having this lifelong struggle. Now, the real modern concern in 2007 is that this is no longer an adult problem. And there's no teenagers in this room, but this is where the problem now exists in America. There are so many pediatric obesity cases, it's spooky. Because what did we say are the major factors associated with overweight? Diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, and elevated blood lipids. And what are we seeing today? We're seeing amongst young people a lot of insulin resistance, a lot of glucose intolerance. We're seeing elevated blood pressure, elevated blood lipids like we never saw before. And this is in people under 20. And if they don't lose weight, imagine what they're going to be when they're 40 or in their 30s. It's got health professionals worried because this country is facing a serious diabetes epidemic. A serious diabetes epidemic because of the high incidence and increasing incidence of obesity amongst young people. 9 million kids, or 15% of American kids aged 6 to 11, are overweight, and the number of overweight children has tripled over the past 3 decades. And then they're talking now about super obesity, which is 40% overweight or more, and this is escalating at unprecedented proportions amongst young people. So here, what I've mentioned, elevated blood lipids, elevated blood pressure, and insulin resistance are more and more being seen in children. Part of the problem is they're not active, like I described the other day. Walking to school and playing outdoors and all this kind of thing. It's not so common today. They're watching TV, DVDs and movies and playing games on the screen, calling friends on the handy. I'm sorry I didn't change this back. In Germany they call it the handy rather than the cell phone. Where in Australia we call it the mobile. I guess we all have different words for this. But you see them for hours just glued to this little gizmo talking. If they were walking and doing laps somewhere, that would be okay. But sitting at night, chatting on the internet, it's a totally different world to what we grew up in, where we didn't have this communication system. And so you see here the fingers are getting more exercise than the legs. And that's a problem, a real serious problem. Because we as adults also are part of this problem. We don't play golf and walk around. We have little cars to drive us between the balls. We mentioned about the windows where we press buttons now and you have all kinds of electronic things in your car. The old idea of getting out of the car and opening the garage door doesn't exist anymore. We have to have these genies that you press a button. And I argued with my wife one time when I was broke. I said, let's just go back to lifting the garage door. It was good exercise. Well, she said, you know, what happens when it's raining? I get wet. Or what happens if I'm pulling up and it's late at night and I don't want to get out? There might be somebody in the bushes to jump on me. I mean, poor me, I come up with an answer to try to find a way to get a little more exercise, and there's all kinds of reasons why we can't. And the old-fashioned electric mower, you know, we don't have those anymore. We have to sit on these little cars and drive around the lawn, and getting up to change the TV, nobody does that anymore. They just sit in their thing and press buttons. And drive through fast food stores. I told you the other day about parking the other side of the parking lot and walking across. I remember one time I went to a convention in Boston and had a big suitcase and checked in, and the guy was telling me my room was up on the 5th floor and the elevator was over here, and I took off over here and started up the stairs with this heavy bag, and he yelled out to me, "Sir, didn't you hear where I told you where the elevator was?" And I said, "Oh, I don't mind climbing the stairs." And he looked at me like I was from another planet. It's like, who would walk up the stairs with a bag? I mean, there's lots of things you can do. Just think about, you know, ways you can increase your exercise, place yourself out of the normal stream so you can actually do it. Well, part of the problem also is not only the sedentary lifestyle, but every corner has a restaurant or an eating place, doesn't it? I have to admit that my wife's cooking is the best in the world. She doesn't quite like totally me saying that because I stay at home and eat. She likes to eat out occasionally, and I said, no, why should we eat out at inferior food? I'd rather eat in the house with you and enjoy your cooking. Well, she's flattered by that, but she'd also like to eat out occasionally. But because of that, I don't know where all the restaurants are. And when people give me directions, it's always like you go down to Wendy's and you turn right, and then you go down the road and it's McDonald's, you turn left. You might as well be talking Greek to me because I don't know where all these places are. Just give me the names of streets. But it's amazing how people, they know the total layout of the town by where all the eating places are. And isn't that the problem? That today we're bombarded with the golden arches or whatever, the signs are there, and the billboards are loaded with all these invitations to eat. I mean, we live in a society where you can hardly take 10 steps and you're not invited to come into the doors and eat something or buy this or buy that. And even on TV, the programs are filled with, you know, enticing ads for various products. And so all these kinds of foods that are high in fat and calories and sugar and salt are the ones that young people are eating today, and even adults also. Fries, burgers, sodas, pizza, you know, all these things that are high in calories. Now let's take a look at a typical American meal. And I'm not going to show you, when I say typical, I mean something that we could perhaps serve here, okay? And let's just go down the list. First of all, we start off with a good salad. Not many calories, a lot of fiber, a lot of water, 10 calories. A slice of bread, good whole wheat bread, baked in the oven and in the kitchen here, 60 calories. half a cup of peas, 60 calories. An entree, casserole, 1 serving. And then half a baked potato. And then, of course, a glass of soya milk, 120 calories. And then for dessert, we're going to go healthy and have a baked apple. I don't know how many people do that anymore, but let's just say we're going to be healthy and have a baked apple. Does that look like something most of you could handle at a meal? It's not too much, is it? Well, how many calories is that? 600 calories. And that represents 25% of the daily calorie needs for a man and about 30% of the daily calories for a woman. Okay, so it's not too unreasonable. But is that how Americans eat? No, they don't eat that way, do they? So we'll take a look at what we do to each one of those things. What do we put on the salad?
Dressing.
And that turned the 10 calories up to 90. What about the bread? We've got to put some butter or margarine or something like that on it, so that doubles the calories. Peas, we've got to spice them up a bit with some margarine, that doubles the calories. The entree, we put some gravy on, that adds another 90 calories. And the baked potato, we put sour cream or yogurt or butter or margarine, whatever your preference is, that bumps it up another 60 calories. And plain old milk's not good enough, we've got to use chocolate deluxe, so that adds another 50 or 60 calories. And of course, who eats the baked potato? Mum makes such delicious apple pie, we've got to have that. And who eats apple pie without ice cream? So you add that for the dessert, and that changes the 60 calories to 500. So it's the same meal, but we've just kind of smoothed it over a little bit, so the things slide down. It's not really the same meal, is it? Because now we're up to 1,450 calories. 600 calories, the basic meal is now more than doubled by all the little additions that we do. And that calculates to 60% of what the man needs in the day and 75% for what the woman needs in the day. It's not good news, is it? So we have to find ways to get rid of all those add-ons. The add-ons are mostly fat and sugar, and they more than double the calories. You just look at, when you compare the different types of food that are made from the same thing. Here you look at baked potato versus a medium serving of fries. Okay, that's one of the problems. You look at low-fat milk, whole milk and chocolate milk, you can see the big difference there. More than double the calories with chocolate in the milk. And then you compare, say, a can of, or a cup of, I think that's a can of V8 juice, the vegetable juice, versus a cup of orange juice versus a can of orange soda. And you can see as you go from the vegetable to the fruit to the soda, you're increasing dramatically the calories. And we've already seen this example going from apple to apple pie with ice cream. We skyrocket. Incidentally, how many apples would you have to eat to get the same number of calories as the pie with the ice cream? Are you good at mental arithmetic, or is it too early in the morning? Yeah, 9. Anybody eaten 9 apples? I've asked this in many places in the world, and the most that I've seen is 4. Somebody will confess that they could eat 4 apples in a row. You kind of get a sore jaw after the second or third one, don't you? It takes a long time to devour the apple, but apple pie, oh, it's so good, and it slides down. I better go back and get a second piece, right? The same thing with bread versus cookie or piece of chocolate cake with chocolate frosting. Ooh, wow, look at that. 445 calories. That's equivalent to 7 slices of bread. You see, simple foods, you can eat a lot more of them. And that's why Dean Ornish has his program of eat what you like and lose weight. Because if you're eating certain types of foods like apples and bread without all the add-ons, you can actually fill up, feel quite satiated, and you haven't taken a lot of calories. But when you start putting the add-ons, then you're in a situation not so good. Also, when there's a lot of food choices, people tend to eat more. They found that if they put 2 or 3 pasta choices at a table, people want to try each one. They'll tend to overeat. So that's another way you can cut down on your caloric intake, is not to have so much variety at the meal. And when you eat out, people tend to eat more. You see here women who eat out 5 times a week or more consume nearly 300 calories a day, more than women who eat out less often. And same with children. When you take your kids out to, or your grandchildren out to eat, they tend to eat a lot more than they do at home. So eating out means more calories. What about portion distortion? I went to Walmart the other day. We're going to have a party or an end of the year do, not really a party, but just farewell kind of event. Congratulations to the graduates and so forth. So I went to Walmart to buy some cups. I was looking for 8-ounce cups. I couldn't believe it. I thought they must be out of stock or something. So I looked in the party section. I looked in the household section. There's nothing. So I looked for an attendant and I grabbed him and said, "Hey, what's going on? Don't you sell 8-ounce cups anymore?" He looked at me like I was, as I said, from another planet or something. And I looked back at the shelf and everything's 16 and 20 ounce, 12 ounce, 16, 20 ounce cups. I mean, that's the way we've gone now in society. You go to the fast food places and they offer you twice the size for the same price, right? And this is what's happened. You look here, over the last 2 decades, the average portion size of foods has increased about 100 calories. You can see the variation there, but about 100 calories. The average beverage serving has increased from 8 ounces to 20 ounces. This is another serious problem that's contributing to the obesity situation in America, is that the serving sizes have greatly increased over the last period of time. Increased portion sizes mean increased waistlines. Now, we've a lot of discussion about it's carbs that cause that elevated risk of obesity. It's the fat and all the rest of it. But if you look at this little diagram here, you'll see that the 4 main calorie sources in the American diet: fat, carbohydrate, protein, and alcohol. Alcohol has 7 calories per gram. Fat has 9. Carbohydrates and proteins has about 4. But all of them end up as acetyl-CoA. And this is the end product of metabolism. And the body uses acetyl-CoA for energy production. Through the Krebs cycle and the electron transport system, we end up with energy, ATP, energy. Okay, if we eat too many calories, what's going to happen? We can't burn all the energy that's being produced, and so the body shuts down that system and goes to make fat, and can make cholesterol also from acetyl-CoA. So the point, you see the fat highlighted there, is that it comes from what? Anything. Okay, it comes from anything that's eaten in excess. We don't care whether it's fat, carbohydrates, protein, or whether it's alcohol. If anything here is in excess, it's going to end up over here. So don't think in terms of carbs or protein or fat or whatever. It's calories. Okay, it doesn't matter where the calories come from. Well, it does matter in that different calorie sources may change the risk a little bit, but overeating of anything is going to end up as fat. And here you see 30 grams, these are all 1 ounce, 30 grams or 1 ounce of fat gives you 270, and an ounce of carbohydrate or proteins gives you 120. So clearly your fat is more calorie dense. So we need to be focusing on foods that are high in water and fiber if we're wanting to get low calories. Now, some research at University of Massachusetts by Dr. Platt showed that if you have excess calories, the body takes a little bit of energy to convert it in terms of putting it on your tummy, adipose fat. Here, if you overeat with carbohydrate, 25% of the energy is wasted in doing conversion over to body fat, whereas if you eat excess dietary fat, it only takes 3% of the calories to do the conversion. So that means overeating pasta, you get 75% of the energy converted to body fat, whereas if you overeat high-fat foods, 97% of the calories is going to be deposited. So not only is fat higher in calories, but it's more easily converted to body fat. So if you're going to overeat, it's better to overeat on pasta than it is on high-fat foods. Now there's a big push today for eating low-fat foods. Okay, you go to the marketplace and everywhere you see low-fat, non-fat, you know. Well, a low-fat food is not really low in fat if you're going to eat multiple servings. Okay, this food is also fairly high in sugars. But here you see the cartoon, Helga made these diet cookies. Man, they're great. But they aren't diet cookies if you're going to eat all of them, right? And that's what the reasoning that some people have. If they diet whatever, then they can eat more of this. Well, they defeat the whole purpose of them being reduced calories when you eat multiple servings. Now, there's lots of programs out there, lots of gizmos you can buy, lots of books with recommendations. So the question is, where should we be focusing? Should we be focusing on the calories, or should we be focusing on the macronutrients? Should we be focusing on cutting down on the energy intake, or should we be worried about where the calories are coming from? Carbohydrates, fats, or proteins? That's part of the struggle today in the marketplace. People are saying, well, I need to watch my carbs, I need to watch the fat, or others are saying, well, what we really need to be doing is cutting down on total calorie intake. Dr. Atkins was mentioned last night by Dr. McDougall, and of course there's a lot of discussion about the safety of his diet and the effectiveness of the diet, and they've done a number of studies where they compared here the Atkins diet, which you know is low carb, and then you have the conventional sort of diet which cuts the fat and the calories, and they compared these two programs. They put people, 63 obese men and women that were at least 220 pounds, they put them on these two diets. The Atkins diet, there's no limit on calories or fat, but your carbs are restricted, as you see here, 40 to 60 grams. The other conventional diet reduces the fat to 25% of your calories, and it also restricts the calories. Women are allowed 1,200 to 1,500, men 1,500 to 1,800. So what was the result in this study? You see the data that was collected. This is average percent of weight loss on the Atkins diet, which is low carbs, and then the conventional, which is low fat, low calorie. After 3 months, what do you see? Who's losing the most? The Atkins. After 6 months, who's losing the most? The Atkins. After 12 months, if you look over here to the statistical number, you see that it's no longer less than 0.05. When it's above 0.05, it means there's no statistical significance. And so after 12 months, it's a wash. Doesn't make any difference. But if you do look at it the short term, yes, Atkins diet is effective. Okay, there was another study, the Philadelphia Veterans Hospital study. Here we had severely obese. These are almost 300 pounds. They were given one of two diets, a low carb diet, where they were only allowed 30 grams of carbs a day. The low calorie diet, where they had to reduce 500 calories. And after 6 months, this is what you find. Low carb diet is more effective than the low calorie diet. Okay? But interesting, if you look over here, what do you notice? The actual calorie reduction. Now, what did we tell you before? The real clue to a weight reduction program is how many calories are you eating? Because that's how you maintain energy balance or tip the balance one way or the other. And what do you see here? The people who are on the low-carb diet have actually reduced their calorie intake by nearly 500 calories. Whereas those on a low-cal diet, while they were told to reduce 500, they actually only reduced half that amount. And they're only reducing probably about 40%, there's about 40% difference there. So the weight loss was greater when patients were told to cut carbs rather than calories. Interesting. Why is it? Why does the low-carb diet work in the short term, over 6 months? Well, when you're on a low-carb diet and you have to cut carbs out, what are you doing to your diet? You're really decimating your diet, aren't you? You've got to cut out huge groups of foods: rice, bread, pasta, cereals, sweets. That's a huge section of what you're eliminating. Number 3 here limits variety. The diet is monotonous, very monotonous, boring. It's actually ketogenic, takes away the appetite, and so people eat less. And the high fat makes people feel full longer. So these are the possible reasons why the Atkins diet and other low-carb diets work in the short run. But is the short run all that we're interested in? Is all that we're interested in is what does the scale show after 6 months? Is that all we're concerned about? Or should we also be looking at the outcomes of obesity, heart disease, stroke, cancer, and diabetes? What is the diet doing to this? Okay? So which diet produces the quickest weight loss in 3 months? The Atkins. Which diet is the best for your health in the long term? Probably not the Atkins with all that meat and cheese and egg and everything else, high saturated fat. So we turn from that and we ask ourselves, what kind of diet should we be looking at? Certainly not a highly restrictive diet that's very restrictive, and also a program that's inflexible, because you're not going to stick on that, are you? A diet program should be a lifestyle change that you're going to follow for how long? Forever. The rest of your life, not just until you've got rid of 25 pounds. If that's your attitude, I can tell you right now, before you even start, you're doomed to fail. If you're on a diet just to lose weight and you can hardly wait to get off it, to get back onto something else, you're in trouble, big trouble, because a diet program is a lifestyle program that you adopt for the rest of your life, because the way that you lose weight is the exact same way that you're going to maintain that weight off and enjoy an optimal weight for the rest of your life. And we said that people are more likely going to do the exercise and the diet program if you do it together with somebody, and if it's enjoyable and it's inexpensive. If you've got to spend a lot of money with all these special foods and powders and everything, and you've got to buy all this fancy equipment to exercise, it's going to be a big barrier. If you can do it by eating simply, following a very simple program and just walking, brisk walking and things like this, it's more likely to be effective. Now, before we get into the 12 rules, I've got 12 basic guidelines for losing and managing weight. Before we get into that, I want to show you some bad diet rules, because there's some people who follow these. If you drink a diet soda after eating a candy bar, then the calories in the candy bar get cancelled out by the diet soda. There are some people that even think they can eat diet margarine and low-fat this and that, and then reward themselves with a premium ice cream high in fat. The calories don't get cancelled like that. It just doesn't work. A package of cookies or candies will give you fewer calories if you eat them slowly over 3 days rather than eating them all at one meal. It's calories. It doesn't matter how quickly you can consume them. If they're excess, they're going to do the same thing. When you eat out with someone, the calories you consume don't count if you eat less than they do. It's amazing how people look at the other person's plate and say, man, I'm not eating that much, so what I'm eating is okay. That's very delusionary. You need to recognize that what you eat should be also modest. So these are the bad diet rules, okay? Get rid of those. So I want to suggest 12 ways to successfully lose weight, and this will bring us to the end here. Number one, very importantly, set realistic goals. Okay, you want to be losing, 2 to 4 kilos, that's about 4 to 8 pounds a month. Or putting it in simple terms, 1 to 2 pounds a week. You don't want to be losing weight too fast. The skin sags, you sometimes get gallbladder problems and so forth. So set realistic goal, about a pound or two a week, and don't waver in your objectives. And ask God to help you. I think in all health education methods, you've got to have a spiritual focus so that you can have inner strength to stick the course. Number two, you knew I was going to say this, didn't you? You've got to exercise to be able to. It's like the boxer. You know, I don't know if you know that Muhammad Ali is my neighbor. He lives in Berrien Springs, not right next door, but down the road. I've seen him, and he's come up to the school sometime. And I think about when he was fighting as Cassius Clay. You know, he was the world's champion, and I don't think he ever once went into the ring with a glove, and all he did was fight with one hand. Now, I'm not endorsing boxing, okay? I don't want anybody to say I'm endorsing boxing. I'm just using this as an illustration, okay? A boxer doesn't go into the ring with just one glove, you know? He needs two, offense and defense. And if one's tied behind his back, pretty soon, where is he going to be? Out cold on the canvas, right? And yet, how many millions of Americans are fighting the weight battle that way? They have the exercise tied behind their back, and they're trying out here with diet to try to lose their weight. And they're flat on the canvas within a few seconds, because that's the way it is. You have to exercise to keep your BMR up. If you just diet, the body will respond, and your BMR will drop 200-300 calories a day. And so the whole business of losing weight becomes much more difficult. If you're exercising, you're keeping things more in equilibrium, and it's going to work a lot more effectively. Make exercise fun. You don't have to do what everybody tells you to do. You pick something that you enjoy, whatever it is, cycling, gardening, walking, hiking, you know, whatever it is, just do something. Even if it's on a treadmill, if that's what you love, do it. I think those things are awful. Just monotonously walking nowhere, walking hundreds of miles and going nowhere. I'd rather be outside seeing things and enjoying nature. But whatever you makes you happy, do that. And we've told you before, doing it with a family member or a friend, a spouse or a buddy, it's going to work a lot better. 30 minutes a day outdoors. And what are the benefits? Many, many benefits. Not only do you manage your weight better, but you're going to feel better. I've found that when you're come to work and you have this program where deadlines and just everything seems to be pressing in on you, if you've walked to work or if you've on an exercise program, you meet those challenges, it's like water off a duck's back. But if you haven't been exercising, those stresses, it's like the first person you see, you want to punch them in the face. You're so uptight about everything. So you feel a lot better. You have a better mental attitude. You take the stresses of life a lot better. You just handle pressures better. Blood glucose control, blood lipids control, blood pressure control, all these things work. It's just a law of nature. You lose weight and all these things will drop. It's guaranteed. And of course, you manage stress better, you sleep better, your digestion is better, your immune system is improved, you have less fatigue, your bowels function better. I mean, the whole of your life system is kicked into a more enjoyable life when you regularly exercise. Number 3, live a balanced lifestyle. It's very difficult to fight the battle of the bulge if you're not feeling good. So you don't want to be eating junk food. You want to be avoiding sweets. You want to drink plenty of water. You want to do everything in your lifestyle, regularity of sleep and everything, so that you feel good, because when you're feeling good, you can meet the challenge that you face of losing weight. Number 4, don't eat a diet that's too low in fat. Remember the Atkins diet, sometimes the principle we saw was the fat in the diet helped with satiety. Foods with a higher fat content satisfy your hunger better than lower fat foods, and you're more likely to stick to it if there's a little bit of pleasantness about the meal. So don't just eat grass, you know what I mean? Lettuce, cucumber, salads, all that sort of stuff. You have to have a little bit of foods with a little bit of fat in there, whether it's some nuts or avocado or whatever it is. Choose carbs that are slow to digest. We talked about glycemic index, and the foods that have the lowest glycemic index, like your beans, your rice and pasta rather than potato. This helps to delay hunger. They have on the web a national weight loss registry, and it's all the people who've lost weight and who've kept it off for a year or more. And when you look at the diets of these people, they typically eat high carbohydrate foods with less fat than the average American. That should say something, shouldn't it? If these are successful weight losers and they have kept it off, then what are they doing? What they're doing must be worth looking at. And they tend to eat high carbohydrate foods. They're not following the Atkins program. They're eating the more conventional thing, low fat, low calorie, but starchy foods. Number 6, of course, you knew we would come to this. Eating lots of fiber-rich foods. Fiber makes things bulky, gives you satiety. It takes longer to chew. Remember the 9 apples versus the apple pie? The apples, the foods that are high in fiber, take longer to chew, okay? And you have the feeling of fullness. They have lower calorie density, usually, okay? So all of this, you see here, more chewing and so forth, it slows down the rate of food ingestion. And these high fiber foods, particularly the water-soluble ones, form gels in the stomach, and this delays the emptying of the stomach. So this fullness feeling lasts longer, and it also facilitates a slower release of carbohydrate to the duodenum. And what does that mean? It means digestion is slower, which means your blood glucose transferred into the blood is going to be slower, which means your blood glucose response is more gentle, which means your insulin demand is going to be not so strong. So high fiber, high water soluble, the pectin, the gels, the fruits, the squash, the beans, the oatmeal, the barley, all those kind of foods are going to give you a better full feeling, and they're going to facilitate a better glucose response so that the diabetic doesn't have such a surge. Number 7, watch your portion sizes. We've already talked about the food establishments with all their supersizing and how much we've expanded that over the years. Share a meal ordered in a restaurant between 2 people. They bring out a plate and you look at it and you think, well, is this for the whole group of 6 of us? You ever thought of that? I have. I've looked at it and thought, I'll be here till midnight eating all this. So order one and divide it between 2. And then they give you a little doggy bag, don't they? You can take stuff home. You can use that for the next meal. When you're at home, use a smaller plate and resist the temptation to pile it high, like with haystacks. Okay? Try to use smaller servings, and of course, avoid second helpings. They can kill you. Number 8, eat most of your calories earlier in the day rather than later. What does that mean? It means run on early fuel. You're driving to New York. When do you think about filling up with gas? In Pennsylvania? I hope not. You fill up early in the trip, don't you? Well, why don't we do the same with our day's life? Why don't we eat breakfast? Okay, a lot of people think they're going to lose weight better by skipping breakfast. Eat only 2 to 3 meals a day. Many small meals or snacks give you a lot of chances to fudge. And something else that people don't recognize is avoid long periods without food, as it is difficult to maintain a responsible eating regime when you're extremely hungry. Don't go a day or two fasting, because you usually come back with a surge and your diet will be sport. Number 9, a lot of diet books now are emphasizing this is very important. Get control of your emotions. Deal with the problem that you have. Don't use food as your crutch. I'm feeling terrible, so I'll go eat. I feel depressed, I'll go eat. I'm feeling rejected, I'll go eat. Everything's going wrong, I'll go eat. Eating becomes the salve of your wounded feelings. A lot of people like that, and this is something we have to overcome. Okay? Avoid using food to reward yourself. Ask God to take over control and sit in the driver's seat. Number 10, relax when you eat your meals. When you're rushed, you tend to eat more. Eat slowly so that satiety can be reached with fewer calories. Being stressed or hasty confuses the signals that you're getting. As I said, you tend to overeat. Enjoy the flavors and textures of what you're eating. Make the meal an experience of the senses. Eating should be very sensuous. Flavors, colors, it's just a very nice experience. And that's why it's best when you share it with your friends, your family. Unfortunately, the family is splintered today and people are going in different directions and eating by themselves or with their own group of friends. But family together is an extremely important time when you transmit culture, isn't it? We teach a lot to our kids at the dinner table. When you sit around and talk and share, they're listening, they're forming opinions about life, they're accepting the culture that you're raising them in. So this is very important. Don't eat in front of the TV or video. You ever watch somebody watching the Thanksgiving game or Super Bowl or something? They haven't got a clue what they're consuming. Peanuts, pretzels, pop, everything's just going down. They don't know how much they're consuming. Well, we can have meals at the dinner table in front of the TV and do likewise. Be eating and not knowing what we're doing. Number 11, establish new eating habits. Permanent lifestyle changes are important. As we mentioned earlier, it should be something that you do for the rest of your life. It is not a 3-month journey. And you're just looking, longing, earnestly expecting for day 90 to come. And on day 91, you're liberated. You're going to just do as you like. You've got it all wrong. You need to change and go on a program that you're going to be on for the rest of your life. Create a circle of people that are supportive to your whole program, not people who will look at you and say, man, you need to lose weight. Other people will help you stay on track and encourage you, like we told you about Mary and Jane calling each other, remember? The buddy system. You know, we need each other to support each other and encourage each other. It's extremely important, not only in this, but in everything in life. Life's tough, right? We don't want to be slapping each other down. We need to encourage each other so that we can face life's challenges. Now, in conclusion, I've just got for you Psalm 23. I'm sure most of you know Psalm 23. This is the diet of Psalm 23. My diet is strict, I shall not want. It makes me lie down at night hungry. It leads me past the refrigerator. It tries my willpower. It leads me in the paths of starvation for my figure's sake. Yea, though I walk through the aisles of pastries, I will resist the chocolates, for they are fattening. The cakes and the pies, they surely tempt me. Before me is set a table with green beans and lettuce. This fills my stomach with fiber. My calorie quota for the day easily runs over. Surely calories and weight charts will haunt me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the fear of the scales forever. Okay? Well, in conclusion, this is in, what is it, chapter 14 in the book we're doing this morning, the 10 Commandments for Effective Weight Control. You'll maybe, I've summarized everything we've said into these double-worded, double-line rhymes here. Follow this simple rule: reduce your girth, and your life will be long upon the earth. Avoid those between meal snacks, or soon you'll be off to Walmart to buy bigger slacks, that should say, sorry, slacks. Avoid eating too much food, or else your tummy will protrude. And don't skip breakfast meal, and eat light at night if you're for real. Do not plunge into the deep and raid the fridge before you sleep. Don't take that cheesecake straight out of the freezer. Beware of the empty calorie meal, and the quick loss diet's not a deal. Watch out for that ice cream and cake and those seconds you want to take. High fiber meals are clearly okay. New eating habits are here to stay. Eat your meals without any haste. With peace of mind, you'll have better taste. And the last one, of course, take time to swim, cycle, walk or run. Whatever you do, make it fun. Okay? So I thank you for your interest and participation this morning and all through the week.